Evan Chigverin, West Peary here. Weather-wise, guys, you know that music. It means we're back with another episode. And boy, March has been wild, Wes. It's officially spring now. We have the equinox, but boy, it's been a month of wild swings in weather. I know for here in Birmingham as well as over in Kansas City. You doing all right?
Good. We're good. We have the Big 12 tournament, the men's and women's Big 12 tournament here in Kansas City. And so, so many news segments are like, March Madness, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yeah, the weather is March Madness as well. So it kind of lends itself there. But we're
Oh, yeah.
good. We're good. We survived a gigantic hailstorm and a tornado that went right through the middle of the city. And so we're good.
Yeah, as long as we're holding it together here. Sometimes we're hanging on by, a fingertip on the edge of a cliff, but hey, surviving nonetheless. So, all right. So we know the landscape of weather's changing. We've talked about it on this platform before. A lot of social media driven, but a lot of people have asked me over the years. I'm sure you too, Wes, about a reliable app. And your very own wise guy, Wes Peary, is actually developing or has developed an app. What are you in the beta testing phase?
Uh,
Where you at?
yeah, I'm in like beta testing phase 2 of 3. Um, I gotta do one more phase for Android. But yeah, it's been crazy. I would not have thought I would be developing an app if it wasn't for the help of AI, to be honest with you. That's what all this comes down to. But it started just like what you were saying, Evan. It's like people are constantly asking us for weather information, right? Which we should know. We are weathermen. That's how it goes. But, we can't always give people weather information that they want. And I started to catch on. It's like, like I know where to direct these people to find the information. I can send them a website because they ask me often enough and be like, hey, here's a website that has the information. You don't have to wait for me to respond to you or be on TV. Like, just go to it. I started to catch on and was just getting like input from different people. And I was like, I should just like create an app with information that other weather apps don't have and include the information that people actually use. Because if the big weather apps actually had all the information, they wouldn't be asking us for very specific things like pressure forecasts. That was the biggest one. People love
Yeah.
knowing what the pressure is, what the pressure forecast. Do you get that a lot, Evan?
Yeah, in fact, we have a 24/7 live stream that runs like a local on the 8s. And somebody reached out and said, "Hey, I can't find where the pressure is anywhere." So I built a graphic that had the current barometric pressure at all of our stations, ASOS stations, raw stations of the DMA, and I plotted it in in millibars and in what's the other one?
Inches of mercury?
There you go, inches of mercury. I almost said feet, but I was like, that's not right. But, people love that, and then also wind direction and speed. It's a big one for farmers who are gonna do stuff on crops, and you don't always have time to get to that, but those are 2 big ones.
Wind direction and speed. And back to the pressure, not just like what the current pressure reading is, but what it's going to be in the future, like for the next 24 hours, for the next 5 days. So people can kind of plan their medication of, when they're going to feel pain or maybe when their sinuses are going to start to act up. Because that's something that I started to notice with myself and my wife as we went through winter. She was like, man, my allergies are really flaring up. I'm like, there are no allergies here in the middle of winter. Like maybe there's some mold. That's not it. And I started to like recognize that as I was showing the pressure forecast more often, I was, more aware of it. And I was like, oh, like our symptoms are flaring up on cue with pressure changes. Like that's what's happening here. And so it affects people of all ages. And so that wind, hunters use wind, uh, athletics use wind all the time. And these are things that, again, are available in apps, but for some reason, you know, apps are not putting it all together to make it in a user friendly, like actionable sauce here. And so that's essentially what I ended up doing is I developed an app that takes weather data that people legitimately use and tell it how it's going to affect their day, whether it be fishing, hunting, um, like yeah, the pressure, UV index. One of my beta testers was like, "You should do the UV index," and I was like, "That's a great idea. If you're going to use it, sure, I'll put it on there." So the UV index and everything, um, like that. I don't know, Evan. Are there any other like weather variables that you think people really use a lot or request a lot that maybe you just don't cover in a regular
Uh,
weathercast?
I've been asked before about the wet bulb, which we've covered on here before, mainly for athletics because they look at a safety threshold where it gets over a certain point, but that's a very small. But that's one I've been asked about. And then I don't know if you said already, but pollen this time of year, people want to know the pollen count
Yeah.
and what the primary pollen is. And so, we've been kind of talking about that a little bit on the air, but again, not something that you can just give readily. And it sounds like your app is geared towards what people need to know, like application, not a future view, not like an hour by hour temperature. It's actual stuff that people can, use and apply, which is it's something that's needed because you're serving the people, and it seems like there's a lot of apps that give the general but not those specifics, and that's those are all great things I think that you mentioned there that I've had a crossover with.
So before we go any further with this, I just wanted to know that it was not my idea to talk about this for the podcast. It was Evan's idea. So I wasn't like, hey, let's just pimp out my app here for a little bit.
It's a flex, West Perry flex. No, I think it's awesome that you did it. I've been kind of watching from a distance as you did like the beta launch and everything else. And it's a very interesting concept because rather than what you said, like give there's a million weather apps out there. And some of them are clunky, they're filled with ads, they're hard to use. That's the biggest issue I have is explaining to people the interface. I got to do a screen recording, show them how to use it, and it still doesn't necessarily have all the info they want. So this is big. We're trying to get information to the people, and this is another way to do that, and I think it's awesome that you launched this.
All right. So we're gonna come back to the allergy thing that you mentioned because that is where like your local meteorologist can really be a differentiator. Because I mean, your app will tell you, hey, the pollen level is high or low or medium. It's just going upon what the weather is and what has historically happened. But it doesn't actually tell you what is floating around in the air. I got access to that data, and it does show you what's actually floating around in the air. Okay, so we'll just show you what's going on here with this app. So this is kind of like the main interface. It's very classic, like current conditions. You can change the theme from dark to light, all that good stuff. Current conditions, wind, pressure, two big things people really care about there. You can click on the UV index reading, which will only show up during the daytime, and it'll tell you what the forecast is for the next 24 hours. People are like, I want to know when I should go tanning. I was like, okay, well, just sure. We'll put that one on there. Sort of like what a broadcast meteorologist does, like they're describing to you what the weather is going to be like. So I have this section where it's like, here's what the weather's going to be like for the rest of this evening into tomorrow morning. Pleasant, cool, comfortable temperature, staying pretty mild overnight. So for each little day part, like I go from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. It has a little dialogue there. It's like, here's what the weather is going to be like, essentially. So you scroll down more, there's the hourly, you can go back and forth. It has like very basic data. And then there's a little bit more when you do the whole pop out. You can see here it has the temperature, sky conditions, wind direction, speed, and what the UV index is going to be for like the next 48 hours. So though that's a really big feature that people write. They love the hourly forecast.
And
It,
that interface is very crisp, clean, and shows you exactly what you want in those boxes: the temperature, the icon, the wind, and the UV. It's very easy to read, not like a clunky graph.
yeah,
Love it.
the graph thing, it's such like a double, it's like a preference thing. Some people like love graphs, but I think more people prefer like they don't need to see a line graph or a bar graph every single time. Right?
Yeah,
Weather's great at putting things in graphs.
we love our graphs, graphs, charts, all that stuff, nerdy things.
A mediogram is what we call them.
Mediagrams, oh yeah.
So I don't have access to live cameras, right? Like I'm not a TV studio. I don't have a network. But EarthCam has a camera. And so I'm like low key putting in their YouTube stream on here and giving them an attribution thing. And like, all right, I hope this makes you happy. Please don't yell at me for doing this.
Forgiveness, not permission.
Yes. This has been one of the more tougher things to develop, and that is the radar. And because it's actually much more complicated than what you might think. There are like different layers that have to load and preload, and you have to put an entire mosaic together in different sources. So I literally just got figured out today finally. I put the her on there, the high resolution rapid refresh model on there that will run for the next 4 hours. Whenever there are storm cells that show up, you can press the little cells button up here, and that'll tell you the direction of travel, the chance that it has hail, if it's rotating, all that fun stuff like that. And so that's useful whenever stuff is actually happening on the radar.
That's great.
Uh,
The direction too, and I think of the storm tracks, that's a big one because that if you can't read radar and you have a point like a storm track on there, it shows you where it's going, that's a big one too.
yeah, and the future one, I think a lot of the apps that have like a future radar, they're using a proprietary future radar. Like I think it's their own. Like for instance, if you have the Baron model, it's showing you, or the Baron app is showing you the Baron model and WSI and all that. And it's like I don't. Those apps don't always good. Let's just put the weather model that every single meteorologist uses, so you know it's at least reliable to some extent.
Yeah, I've had my questions about the her lately, but it's usually very reliable for sure.
Other big one is people just ask, when's it going to rain next? When's the next chance of rain? It's like, okay, that's on there. Something I've added recently is you put how much it might rain that one time, what the rain chances are for the next 10 days. And then I found out a way to pull in a bunch of different weather models, like even the European AI weather model. So for people that are really into weather, I'll be like, here you go. Look at all these different weather models. Here's how much I think it's going to rain over the next 10 days.
Wow,
Some of
that's
these
great.
some of these features we're going through will end up being like premium features, um, just because it takes time and effort and to some extent money to do this. So I'm not trying to get rich off this, but like this is when it gets like a very geeky. It's like if you're a farmer, if you're a really big weather enthusiast and you want to know how much it legitimately might rain, here you go. Here's a bunch of different weather models that we all use every single day to make our.
That's awesome. And you can look for trends too. It may not be specific to one, but when you see a jump in multiple, pretty good bet you're gonna see something.
Exactly. Like, look at Friday. Everything's kind of jumping up there. You know, Thursday, rain might get there a little early, some models think, but for the most part, there's that jump around Friday, around midnight for rain to come. Snow is not very useful right now, but it's in there.
Yeah, you never know. You never know that this time of year. The March has been wild, but hopefully the snow's just about done, right?
You'd think we're not safe for like another month here in Kansas City.
Won't say it.
Very good. This is like one of the big features that I moved my app around, or I kind of built the app around, was the pressure. Like, there's so many people that ask me about the pressure forecast, so what's happening. And so I have a 5-day forecast and a 24-hour forecast. And there's a message that says pressure is falling sharply and will continue to drop. Expect significant joint pain and sinus, right? It's telling people this is what's going to happen to your pain. So you can take your pills, do all that stuff.
Yeah,
The 5-day forecast is going to be a premium feature on that. Link to my podcast, weather report, blah, 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 blah. And the 10-day forecast. I initially didn't want to do these hourly breakdowns. So, right, this is for Friday. This is for 3 days from now. And it's like, yeah, 3 days from now, we have a general idea of what the hourly conditions might be, but it's not great. And so I was kind of hesitant to put these hourly conditions on there because it's like, look at all these 1%, 2%, 3% chances of rain. But I just got so many people that asked me for this. I'm like, okay, like y'all really want this. I put a little confidence indicator. And it's like, hey, once we get past day 3, it starts to get a little sketchy here. Don't put too much into us. And when we go to like the very end of the 10-day forecast, I'm pulling NBM data, I think. And so when I put this thing, it's like very low confidence. Okay. I'm not totally sure it's going to happen. But here's what
That's
at least
great
the weather models have.
context. That's great context. When we go to the beach, this is I immediately thought of this. My father-in-law loves to pull out the iPhone app, and he goes, "Hey, it says 70% chance next hour, 20% the following." I said, "Okay, well, I don't know how this is run, what the algorithm is, but it's not going to be that specific, especially several days out. They'll start texting me, a couple days before we go to the beach. And they say, "Hey, look at this," and I say, well, "Let's wait. It's the beach, sea breeze front. You never know." But putting that confidence there and giving it context is great. That's something I've not seen before for sure.
Go through blah, 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 blah. One thing I've always actually kind of like laughed at these apps is like having these ridiculously 27, 17% rain chances. I always thought that was kind of silly, but it's like if y'all really want this, okay,
Yeah,
here you go.
some people probably hang their hat.
The pollen outlook. This is big. And does Birmingham have like an entity that measures pollen and sends out the information?
No, it's a big issue that we have, and the demand. We kind of have to use a conglomerate of different data sets, but not just one because it's a licensing issue. So Atlanta does this, as I'm sure you know. They have a daily pollen count. Birmingham does not. I reached out to a couple allergists, but we have to basically go off of estimates, and then we can reach out to farmers. But the exact parts per million, we don't know. We just know a general idea.
That is tough, especially like in the South and a city of that size. You would think that some allergy and asthma, doctor or foundation would step up and buy the machine to measure it out.
I called a couple hospitals about it, and nobody seemed interested. This was last year because I was going to
Mhm.
try to do a story on it, talk about it. Because I mean, there's so much agriculture around not just central Alabama, but the state, and a lot of that plays into what you have floating in the air. But yeah, it's just not something anyone's pursued here.
That's a great point. N if you ever pursue it again, you can tell them you are literally getting free advertising. Like, we'll put your logo on our allergy graphic, and, like, every day you will get multiple shout outs on TV.
Absolutely.
So that's what I have to do right here. I put Children's Mercy Hospital, I think, like, twice because they send out very specific things. Okay, now this is where it starts to get interesting, and you can see I actually messed up here. I'll show you where I messed up, and I still haven't quite fixed it yet. But this is golf, right? We talked about taking into account all these different conditions to just tell people what is the better time to do something. Like, they can interpret the weather data on their own further up, but if you just want to straight up know what the data says is the best time to do something, like, here you go. So this afternoon or it's tomorrow, it's warmer. Sure, it's a little windier, but like that's the better time to play golf is when it's warmer outside.
I love your legend, Eagle. That's great.
Well, where this is like getting messed up here is that in the afternoon, it's a 14% chance of rain. It's 85. It's a 10% chance of rain difference, but it's 15 degrees warmer. And plus it says eagle. Eagle is a better score than a birdie. But my app is like, oh, you should play in the afternoon. It shouldn't be recommending that. It should be recommending the eagle. And so that's why I'm still kind of in like the beta testing phase because every day or every other day, you have to check and like there's gonna be something that's just kind of wrong that you have to tweak and be like, all right, fix this. There's that. And that's the forecast for like the next 7 days. And there's actually my next idea is to build a strictly golf only app here where you can type in any city in America and it'll tell you what the golf outlook is for the next 7 days. Um, because people can pay, or I guess it's 5 day, because people pay a lot of money for golf, right? And so I think
Yeah,
there's a market for like a $2 a month app to have people look at the forecast. These other
yard
things
work.
are pretty classic that we show on TV, right? The buggy meter, just yeah. The yard work forecast. If it rains a bunch one day, then or then the next day it'll be like, hey, put down grass seed or put down fertilizer. The ground is still wet. Um, and the second to last big piece is that I have every single professional sports team's forecast in here, and I have their schedule loaded. So right now, This is the only game we have within a week of happening. So I have the Royals opening day forecast in here, albeit I don't really like how it has rain icons with a 20% chance of rain. I need to tell it to be like, don't change the icon until it's at a certain rain chance, but it's at least giving you the forecast there. And so we'll do that for Royals games, for KC Current, Sporting KC, eventually Chiefs, but we're nowhere near the start of Chiefs. And so it's not on there yet. And then hunting and fishing. Did I open up hunting and fishing? I did. This is one where wind and pressure both come together. Falling pressure is good for fish to bite. It's good for fishing. Recent rainfall, I think, is also good for fish. I forgot why, but I think it's good. I think it like muddies up the water and bugs and stuff are like churning around, and so that makes the fish bite. And so those two things will be like, hey, light rain forecast, insects washing in, expect active surface feeding. So it's telling you like what type of lure-ish to use. It's a good day for fishing. Focus on structure and drop-offs. I don't quite know what that means. I'm sure somebody does. Pressure dropping, bass and catfish aggressively ahead of the front. So like that's interesting. And then my hunting one is my most questionable. I've never been hunting. I've done fishing many times. I've never been hunting. And it keeps on bringing up turkey, like turkey hunting. I don't think it's turkey hunting season. It's not deer hunting season, but like the wind direction, the wind speed, that is super important for
Right.
deer hunting and temperature and everything like that. So those all come together to kind of tell you what's going on. So there it is. It is like 2 months worth of work, and still kind of a work in progress. Man, this is just it kind of shows you that you and I went to school to be meteorologists, right? We didn't do any coding. I think we were encouraged to do some coding. I don't know how to really code anything. I know a little bit more now after doing this, but our level of expertise can be spread across different platforms, and also just like the industry necessitates that you do something differently other than just do the weather on TV all the time. You got to try and do it on social media, on YouTube, like everything.
I tell people who come shadow or, spend a day with us. Serious. That's probably the smallest part of my day. Everything else, you get the forecast, but you're
Oh,
hitting
and
up
say that again. For some reason, your audio cut out for just a second.
did it? How does it sound now?
Oh, no, you're good. You said something is the smallest part of your day.
The being on air for the newscast is the smallest, easiest part of the day, which it didn't used to be. That used to be the main thing you did, but now you're posting across multiple platforms. In your case, you've got an app, and now you're making yourself accessible and your knowledge accessible through multiple layers. And I've been saying, and a lot of people have been saying for years, what is a good app? Well, now you can answer with certainty because you have, what's behind it. And I'm not going to lie, I considered this last fall, and it just seemed like a daunting task to me, putting all of my platforms in one and then building something like this that actually gives people specifics, exactly like what you have, stuff that they can consume that applies to their life and is, again, reliable because you just sourced everything.
It's definitely something that you can do. This was all built on talking with a program called Replit. And Replit, it's got an AI bot that works with it, and it just helps you code through different things. And like it'll just give you general ideas of what to do and help you um, find the data sources and everything. And also with the AI software called Claude. Claude is very big on coding, and so I'm kind of using those two things together to help me troubleshoot, come up with ideas, and just help um, give the beta testers what what they want. So, I mean, it definitely takes time. Yes, and I know Evan, you're already a super busy guy, but over a few months, you can develop an app that is like just for Birmingham, like just for Alabama, pretty easily. There is so much weather data freely available that it's pretty easy to just put it all together and make it a very consumable. And they have a name behind it that they recognize, right? They would have your name behind it and say, okay, this is made by a legitimate meteorological expert putting useful information in it that people need.
This is excellent. This is like a whole new, look into what, the future of our business could be. And I think it's awesome. And the reason I wanted to talk about this was not, to give you like a flex or anything, but just to show like how it's pivoting. And I always get asked, is there a good app out there? My answer is usually, I don't know. I'll refer them to our weather app, but I'll be honest, I don't think our station weather app's that great. It certainly doesn't have half this data. And the radar confuses people because they'll accidentally click now and future, and it'll
Yeah.
show the composite future, but it doesn't line up with right now. It's an hour refresh of the future radar, but this is great, and I think this is what people want. I'll be curious to see what more feedback you get, but this is the direction things need to head for a reliable source. Plus, this clears out some of the questions about you see all these idiots posting stuff. Well, you can go to this app as an alternative and be like, hey, let's see what's actually feasible in this forecast, not a one run anomaly in a data set. This is great stuff. This is excellent. Excellent.
Thanks, man. If this does well, I'll just give you all the code for this app, and you can just change it up to the Alabama and the Auburn forecast instead of the
Yep.
Royals and the Chiefs.
And you know what? This will be
Barron.
a separate conversation outside of this episode because I have so many questions, but, people probably don't care about my ineptitude with coding. So,
No, like I said, I was inept as well. I just started typing things in, and I was like, make me a weather app that has like certain things on it, and it just kind of builds it for you. So yeah, if you would like to download my app, it is in the final beta testing stages. I'm working on getting it in the legitimate app stores soon, hopefully over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. See if the hard work pays off. I'll give it 6 months. I'll probably give it like a year, and if it doesn't do anything, if I don't see big spikes or big usage, I'm probably just gonna be like, all
I
right,
think
well,
getting it
no.
out there will be the big thing. You have what so many people want in an app at a fairly easy interface, at least, on the surface, what we just saw. So, good stuff. Meteorologist Wes Peary, killing it. So,
Thanks, dude.
all right. Well, something that your apps, no apps can tell you is some of this, this data, this historical data. And we talked a little bit this last episode about March being a big pickup in the overall activity of not just severe weather, but of tornadoes in general. So, if you recall, Wes, we said we gave March total for tornadoes about a 115. It's an over under. Probably likely lean over. And boy, have we we still have a couple days to go in March, and the preliminary total, which again, preliminary, this will be assessed over months, and even seen this go into the next year where they fix it. But 189 tornadoes, Wes, so far this March, and you can see a couple bullseye spots. Not that I expected Illinois and Michigan to be in there, but nevertheless, very active month.
I think we arrived at 115 because we were like correlating La Nina years. It was like, yeah, La Nina years.
In neutral.
Oh, okay.
And but we looked at La Nina neutral and we said, okay, what's above average? And I think the average for like a 20-year moving period was about 90 or 92. And we thought, okay, above average is 115. It's not crazy high. And then the crazy anomalies we've seen have been the past couple of years, but they have been well, well, well above what has historically been, the numbers. And, from a state standpoint, Illinois, would you have guessed, they'd be tops of this list in March, 35 tornado reports?
That's what I was about to say in terms of the most obvious or eye catching thing is that you have an upper Midwest state leading as opposed to the southern states, which historically have more active tornadoes in March, which like they're there, like Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, like they're there for sure.
We're on par. I mean, that's about what we would expect. In fact, I might even go we're a little under in Alabama with the 13 reports. Um, but that's the outliers, that Illinois, that outbreak there of those storms a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, I do recall that. And I guess maybe that was like one day. 2 days that really just caused them to have twice as many tornadoes as Georgia, Alabama. I can understand, like Oklahoma having some, like Missouri. Yes, we have some. Yeah, but to have them like in Michigan, like a Michigan March tornado,
If you look over
pretty
here, you can
weird.
kind of see the plotted timeline. There was one around the 13th or the 12th. That was a big spike. And then this other one, this was the southeast on the I believe that was the 16th that came through. That was our event, but most of the tornadic activity happened back further to the west, and you can see that was the Mississippi event. And I think this this system up here in Illinois, the Ohio Valley, was this earlier one around March 10th, 11th, when that system
Yeah.
came through. 'Cause I have family in Michigan, and they were talking about how they got this tornado ripping through the southern part of the state. I'm like, what? And it's pretty graphic video of it that you don't typically see this time of year again for Michigan, but expect the unexpected as we talked about.
I remember seeing a video of like I don't know if the tornado was going over the lake or maybe the it was in the background of the lake, but it was a frozen lake in Michigan with the tornado
I
going
mean,
nearby it. I was like, yeah, that is definitely not something you see every year.
just sums it up, right? So 189 tornadoes, which this is pretty interesting too, Wes. We look at where that would rank, and of course, we're not done with March, and this is the all-time numbers back to 1950. And you'll see some fluctuation with these numbers. We've talked about this is SPC data. Your local forecast offices, your tornado databases are going to fluctuate a little bit, but for all intents and purposes here, this would put it, right here behind 2017, fifth, all time with that 189. So that made me think, okay, these are troubling tornado trends, right? But if we put context to it, I kind of want to shed some light on that because I certainly think we've seen, some uptick over the years, but there's a couple things we talked about last summer. Grady Dixon, awesome guy. I actually just talked to him recently. He's moving to West Virginia. He's going to be out there, yeah, a dean at a university. I'll have to pull up the email, but he's a you know blazed a trail in tornado research, and I think there's some things here that are maybe skewing the numbers at least slightly. Um, and one of those is population, but the other is identification, right? Like we can see stuff. Wes, I don't know, how many EF0, EF1 tornadoes you pick up in a QLCS, but there's a lot of things that have changed over the years that have made these easier to detect.
So I'm looking at the top five here, right? 2025, 22, 23, 2017. I mean, yeah, that is with very modern radar technology in order for us to see what is going on with tornadoes in general. Also, it's possible that something we discussed with Grady here, and I actually just listened to that episode like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was on a long run for my half marathon training, and so it's very good because it was like an hour and a half long podcast that we ended up doing with it, so it was perfect. But he was like, yes, there like has at least been some sort of trend further off to the east. There are like a lot of reasons for why that might be, but this would line up with the trend in which, like, if you're going off to the east, you're getting tornadoes in a more populated area, and therefore you will have more reports and you'll have more radar coverage to see them as well.
Yeah, I think in general, I think you could say that there's an uptick perhaps in the tornado. I don't know if you can really deny that. I just think that if we had to kind of curve the numbers a little bit, some of these are being identified now by phenomenal, radar meteorologists at the National Weather Service. They can see these things scan to scan, and then they go out and survey. So something that wouldn't have even been surveyed years ago is now being analyzed to the point where they're going out and they're assessing a whole area of damage to give, we've had surveys done in the middle of a forest where nobody lives, and they're deemed tornado, maybe EF0, EF1. They'll be on the ground for 5 minutes, but they're now being documented. I think Alabama's near the tops of EF0 and EF1 tornado occurrences, like in the country. And not to minimize the impact of them, but we're seeing things that weren't seen before. And we've talked about that huge spike in data, especially across the southeast from 2000 to 2023, basically having the same amount from a regional standpoint, same amount of tornadoes in that 23-year period as the previous 50. And I have to think a lot of that has to do with identification. advancements in technology and everything else. But certainly need to keep an eye on these numbers as they continue to go up here year to year. And we'll kind of see how it pans out. It's all about trends and looking at the big picture. We get so hyper focused sometimes, I think, on one year, one instance, one event. You got to look at things with a wide lens to get an accurate depiction of what's happening, in my opinion.
Something I kept bringing up with that conversation with Grady, and I was waiting actually to hear myself bring it up again as I was running, but I think I we did 2 versions of that podcast, and the first version I brought it up, the second version I didn't. But it's like if there are tornadoes that occur in a more highly populated area, like, yes, you're gonna see more reports of it. But also our period of records for tornadoes is small, and so, like, is it possible that there were like, there has been a not like cycle, but like shifting has happened before, right? Like, was there a very high amount of tornadoes in western Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, eastern Colorado, right? Like 50, 50 to 80 years ago, and like people just didn't see them, didn't know what was going on, so they didn't report it. But now, like maybe it's shifted off to the east, and we're seeing them better. Like you can't say yes or no. We just don't know. But that's just something to keep in mind. There's still so many uncertainties where if a tornado is in the middle of nowhere and is not near a highway or interstate, yes, it could have been a tornado over the last 20 years, but the 20 years prior, it wasn't.
So think about this, Wes. We have documented proof, going back even to the late 1800s of tornado outbreaks. But like 1925, the tri-state tornado, the reason that was identified, obviously, is it crossed three states. You can't miss it.
Mhm.
So we know there's been outbreaks there. There was another outbreak, I think, in 1936 that killed, I think, right around 435 people. It's just ahead of April 27th for the one of the deadlier. I think the actually April 26th or 28th or 25th or 28th, that whole outbreak, it's just ahead of that for one of the deadliest events. But the point is like we've had these outbreaks, but if you look at some of the mapping of it, the reason that these were all identified is they went through areas where there are cities, and who knows if we had these outbreaks to a greater extent, more of them prior to 1950, of course, the tri-state 1925. Like there's evidence that we've had these outbreaks, but they weren't well documented prior to, I guess you can call it the modern era. Um,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of things that go into it. And again, I think without anything else, we're getting a lot more data and a lot more accurately now than we were ever, even before, the 1990, just with our radar data alone. More ASOS stations to look at temperature, buoy data out in the oceans. There's a lot of things that you have to consider with all this. But nevertheless, we are in, severe weather season, tornado season, what have you, and heading into April, Wes, that shift starts to climb up into the southern plains as far as a climatology perspective, and this is, a smaller sample. This is 82 to 2011, but it gets the idea across.
Looking at the CPC, as the Climate
Mhm.
Prediction Center, outlook for April. And for us here in Missouri and Kansas, and really just like Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, forecast was wetter than average and warmer than average. So that either means there's going to be a lot of severe weather, or there's going to be a lot of rain and it's cloudy and it holds our overnight lows warmer. But judging by how things look for early April, I'm leaning towards that means there's going to be more severe weather because it looks, let's just say, yeah, it looks pretty active. And I know, like, yes, the probabilities are shifting north, but my gosh, we already had a bunch of tornadoes in Illinois and Michigan. So it's like the probabilities are a little delayed this year.
Yeah, and I will say this is just a probabilistic map based off of past data. This doesn't mean that this is what's going to happen. And this is looking at a period where there have been tornadoes over that span. And this is the beginning of April, the first week in April. And it just gives a rough idea. And this is exactly what I would expect. But as we go further along, this is where we start to see that trend go a little further from the Gulf Coast as the warm air starts to win and kind of take over. And I was looking at this too, Wes. Speaking of trends, once again, this is April. Same data set that I pulled earlier. It's just the number of tornadoes within a monthly period. And there's two that jump out, of course, 2011 and 1974. Well, that was a super outbreak. And of course, we know what happened in 2011, just historic numbers there. So if you take just those out, I mean, 2024, 2025, 2019, 2020, 2022, 2017, there's a lot, they're all recent. So this is what I meant by troubling tornado trends. As I'm looking at this in bed, because I have like insomnia, I'm scrolling through this stuff on, my wife's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm on the climate data site for NCEI. Okay. Leave me alone. But no, seriously, look, and I'm just looking through this, trying to take it all in, and of course, there's anomaly years because in between here, 2024 was a dead year in April and in March. There was nothing, but the following year and the previous year were very active. So, it's just interesting to look at these numbers, and we'll see where this April ends up ranking altogether. But I just thought that kind of went with the March numbers as far as the recency um, of the increased tornadoes.
For the casual observer, if they were looking at this data set, they would probably be like, "Oh my gosh, it's getting real bad out there."
Everything needs context. It just does. Just like your app. Your app had great context, and you need context with these data sets. I've said it with weather a lot. You can manipulate a data set to your liking. We try to do, at least on here, and I try when I give weather data to be fair to it. When there's a record high, as we've had two record highs this month, we also had a record
Same.
low.
Oh,
And you have to give context. Say, okay, we're approaching a record, but this is not impossible for this to. We can hit 80 almost any time of year. We can hit mid 80s really anywhere from February and March. And yes, it's an outlier, but it's not that far of a reach. And so if you kind of give that context, or hey, the record was set back in 1906. All right, we've had that record for 100 years. This is not some sort of crazy spike. You have to give context to every data set, or it can run away. And you know but, we've had some crazy, crazy swings.
we had a dude. What was it? We had like a 45-degree temperature swing on Friday. No, on Saturday. It was 93 in the afternoon last Saturday. It was the hottest March day on record and the earliest first 90-degree day on record, and it's probably gonna be like 90 again tomorrow and Thursday.
So I was following and I saw that you had posted something about a 90-degree day, and I was thinking, "Holy cow." I mean, you have even bigger swings than us. See, for me, I had reached out to you and you sent me a link to a site,
Yeah.
and I thought that we had big temperature swings. No, 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 no. No. You, sir, have temperature swings. And it was pretty wild to see. We fell from 71 at 12:01 to 33 at about 9 in the morning, and we went from a tornado watch to snow, all in that period. I mean, it was wild.
That's some
But
Midwestern stuff right there. That's like, yeah, Midwest.
yeah, our earliest 90-degree day here in Birmingham was March 21st. That was in 1907, and then after that, the earliest day is right around mid-April. Um, and we've had nothing close to April since 2012. That was May 1st, and that was 90 degrees. So we actually have a more gradual, or further south, we have a more gradual, slow approach to the warming process because we have much more moisture in the air, as opposed to you. You have that dry heat that can come really quick. That ridge over southern plains is so powerful to the trends. It's amazing.
What is also amazing is the fact that our official first earliest first 90-degree day on record, that makes sense, was also March 21st. Now it's March 20th because what happened last week. But that is, yeah, really telling that we can have generally the same weather in terms of extremes, but the moisture slows us down or slows you all down from hitting too hot of temperatures, even though you're much closer to the equator than we are.
Warmest temperature so far is 85. We hit 85 on the 22nd, so a couple days ago. That was not a record, but we hit 85. We hit 83 twice. One of the days it was a record, but then on the flip side, we had a record low of 27 that was set the day after we got snow. We also ranked the snowfall that we had, 8/10 of an inch at Birmingham, was the fifth latest snow of all time and the latest since 1988. So in a month time, we had a record high, um, three different instances of mid 80s for a high, a record low, and a record late snowfall, all in between 14 tornadoes statewide in that span. I mean, it's just, you cannot make this crap up.
Did a bunch of your flowers get killed and stuff like that in Alabama because of the 28-degree morning?
No, actually, it did not. It was so short lived. It was cold, but it wasn't like a hard freeze. Like we weren't down below freezing for like 8 hours. So everything was actually kind of fine. Now, there could be botanists out there or I don't even know what you call them, but avid
Herbologist.
gardeners. There you go. Yeah, I have no idea where it hurt, but in general, I heard of nothing. People, had tarps over their plants and stuff that had bloomed, but those people already know what's up, so they don't need amateur Evan coming in saying, "Oh, cover your plants."
That's your job, though. Cover your
Nope.
pipes, cover your plants, bring in your pets.
I say that, then they look at my yard and they're like, "What does this guy know about herbology or whatever?" So, I just along the same line of thinking, I was kinda looking at some of the crazy ranges. Now, I take all of these, they gotta be, you know, between basically, sea level and under 1,000. 'Cause if I took into account the elevation, this would be insane. So, all these are I think the highest is at 700 feet, and I think that was in, North Dakota.
Mhm.
But this is the temperature spread this month. I mean, and there's a ton of these that are between -10, -15, -20. I just grabbed a couple, but, you could see that the range, about what you expect, Texas, Arizona, California, all have been in the triple digits, above 110. That's just nuts. And then this was the favorite stat. Well, I just thought, let me see who's had snow. 7 inches of snow since March 1st for Wetmore, Michigan.
Where's, I gotta look up I'm gonna assume Wetmore is in Western Michigan.
Extreme northern, central,
Oh.
the UP.
Oh.
So it has everything to do with the winds. I think if you once you look at where they're at, a northwesterly wind, which is very common and has been with this whole, spring winter pattern, they must have just had snow ban after snow ban after snow ban because there's no place close to this. I
Man.
mean, 77 inches in a month. That's incredible.
Yeah, I like, the fetch is probably huge off of Lake Superior. You just need a north wind, some element of a north wind, and you're getting lake effect snow there. Same thing near Marquette, Michigan, which I did not know Marquette is on the UP until
Yeah, it
now.
is. So I think the university is actually outside of I could be wrong on this, but there's a Marquette in Wisconsin.
Yes,
I think a little bit outside, and I think that's where the school is. I could be getting this wrong, but for the longest time,
I'm
I
gonna
thought that
Google
was,
it.
Marquette, Michigan, but,
Okay.
not an expert on that.
Research University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay, all right, cool. I was surprised. I was like, I didn't know the school was in the UP. It's just another Marquette.
Yeah, actually, Eric DeBroca, who came on here, with the bird data,
Yeah.
he was a meteorologist in the Marquette market, before he came to Dothan. It's a fascinating stories up there, and if you've ever been to Northern Michigan, UP in the summer, it is some of the nicest summer weather you'll have. But it's basically Canada and in a big chunk of the year. It just is. It's like it's separated almost from the rest of the lower 48 because of where it is
Mhm.
and its proximity. You're kind of sandwiched between two lakes. You got Lake Michigan to the south, you got Superior to the north, and then this continental Arctic air mass just to the north of that. So it's a wild change, but interesting nonetheless. So who's hot, who's not, hadn't done it in a while. I was fascinated with some of those numbers. But warm
I like Buttercup, California at 112 and Spinach Lake, Michigan, -17.
-17, and of course you have to have a Texas value in there because they
Yeah,
just are. It's
desert,
Texas.
giant
But
desert.
our warmest 83 this month. Our coldest um, was 27, and last month I think we had a range of 83 to 17 in February. So
You are a rain man of Birmingham temperatures.
I just like the to put in again context to the data. The just to see how crazy that the transitions can be. That's the difference between a an Arctic air mass or a massive trough over the southeast versus a big ridge. And what comes in between is usually the active weather. And we've certainly
Mhm.
seen that, um, at least to this point. So here's to April. We're ending the month very quiet and pretty warm. But I'm curious what April has in store for the whole lower 48 because we are entering a historically active time of year.
We need some rain here personally, not desperate, but we need some rain. So I think we'll be getting that. Going back to your extremes, coldest temperature for March so far is 9, hottest is 93. So it's like we're in South Dakota all of a sudden here.
Yeah. And I was looking at a couple in North Dakota and South Dakota, and the swings are insane. I think I saw a mid 80s reading for somewhere in south of Bismarck, but then they also were 6 degrees, and I'm thinking, how do you dress for like what?
Let's see. Their coldest is -6. Their hottest is 75 in Bismarck for March so far.
It might have been South Dakota. I just remember I
Where?
showed the national map of temperatures when we had that big shot of cold air on the 16th, 17th.
Yeah.
And we were 78, 80 degrees here in Birmingham, and then it was like single digits over the Dakotas, which just showed the gradient of that system, but
I'm
just fascinating.
I'm looking at Fargo. Fargo has been a little colder, -1 and 63. Yeah.
64-degree spread. That's nuts.
We had a
Absolutely.
80 93 minus 9 is 82. So we're 82.
Again, that's perspective. Because here I am telling you that we've dropped from 71 to 33, thinking, "Oh my gosh." But now granted, it was over a time period of 8 to 10 hours, so that's pretty significant, especially for here, but that's just that just goes to show. I mean,
I need to
nuts.
sorry, I need to correct my math, 84. Sorry. I mean,
Oh, good.
now I've sounded dumb. So that's not good. Well, like I mean, the infrastructure in Alabama is not built for gigantic swings in temperatures like that. So it makes sense that like that is a big temperature swing for you all because you're not used to life that crazy.
A lot of people don't have central heating here, especially if you live in a mobile home. They've got space heaters, which unfortunately leads to a lot of fires every season. But so it does make a big difference when you go from a lot of people messaged me. They said, "Hey, I had my AC on Sunday afternoon, had to turn on my heat by Monday morning." And you did. We were 80 Sunday afternoon and then 33 Monday morning. So again, Alabama said, "Hold my beer. I got you. I got some weather for you." So
Well, for a future episode, you brought up Eric, and I would be interested to have him on again soon as the birds are coming up from the south. And from what I understand, they are hummingbirds are at least 3 weeks early. And so I would love to know if Eric has any hummingbird or any other bird inside that he would be able to share with us about the current migration.
I've known Eric for years. I can guarantee you he does. And
Sweet.
I'd be curious too, because I've had a lot of people talk about the hummingbirds. People were late putting out their sugar water.
Mhm.
Um, so we'll let's have him on. I'll reach out to him and we'll see what we can do. And if y'all have any questions about stuff, whoever, watches this, we have a pretty good, loyal, small following that watches this. I know at least down here we do. If you have any, questions, ideas, drop it below. If, there's something we don't cover that you want to, obviously we can ramble about stuff. So appreciate you hanging around with us. Hopefully you learned something. I certainly enjoy doing this because it's like a free, well, we can just talk kind of
Yeah.
long form and, your app is phenomenal. I can't wait to see where that goes. And of course, we'll ride out this severe weather season as it unfolds.
If I strike it rich with this app, I will fly us to I don't know, some nice place where the weather is quiet.
Let's go to Yellowstone and do an episode from up there.
That'd be pretty sweet. Okay. That's the opposite of quiet, but sure.
Yeah, well, just away from the geysers and the super volcano and all that nonsense.
All right, deal.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I think this is our 34th episode over a year and 3 months. something like that. So thanks for riding along, and again, we'll change it to whatever you guys want, need. Let us know, and thanks for stopping by. We're the Weather Wise guys.